Rashomon. This Japanese film from director Akira Kurosawa has been deemed by some as one of the greatest movies ever made. Now, when I first saw this film, I was in my late teens, and I really wasn't interested in watching any foreign film, especially a really old foreign film. But I remember being surprised by how absorbed I got in this movie. Almost 60 years after its release, I still find Rashomon to be a beautiful and poetic mystery, one that uses the unique qualities of cinema to examine the nature of truth and the darker sides of human nature. How does Rashomon do this? Well, just give me a few minutes of your time, and we'll go back and take a closer look at Rashomon. Rashomon is a story about a crime. More specifically, it's a story about the telling of a story. The film opens in the ruins of an old temple. We are in the middle of a storm, and we see three men, a woodcutter, a priest, and a commoner, who have all taken refuge from the storm at the temple's gate. It's here in this opening sequence we see the importance of the number 3. There are 3 men here. The story they are about to hear has 3 main characters. The story will have 3 conflicting viewpoints. And while none of the central characters have yet appeared, the film will flash back to a trial convened to solve a crime, and then flash back even further to depict the crime itself. So in Rashomon there are 3 levels of storytelling. There is a story being told by the woodcutter at the gate. There is a second story, that of the witnesses testifying at the trial, and there is a third story, which is the audience witnessing the crime itself. The first perspective we get on this crime is from the point of view of the bandit. This character claims that he lured this wealthy samurai into the forest for the purpose of robbing him and raping his wife. The bandit claims that he tied up the samurai and tried to attack the wife. Now, even though the woman tried to defend herself against her attacker, she eventually gives in and is seduced by the bandit. Now, after the attack, filled with shame, the woman begs the bandit to duel her husband to the death in order to save her from the guilt and shame of having 2 men know her dishonor. The bandit agrees, sets the samurai free, and the 2 of them begin dueling. The bandit eventually kills the samurai. The second story told is from the point of view of the wife, and her version is quite different from that of the bandit's. In her version, the bandit leaves her for dead after he has raped her. After freeing her husband, the wife begs the man to kill her so she will be at peace and freeing her from her shame. But the husband doesn't. He just stares at her with a look of utter disgust. His expression disturbs her so much that she takes the dagger in her hand and slowly walks towards him and off-screen. Then, in one of my favorite scenes, we get the third story. This story is told from the point of view of the murdered samurai. What's interesting here is that he conveys his version of the events through a psychic medium. Now, in the samurai's version, he claims after the bandit raped his wife, he then asked her to run away with him. According to the samurai, the wife accepted, but asked the bandit to kill the husband so she wouldn't feel shame for belonging to 2 men. After his wife and the bandit run away, the samurai, alone and filled with shame, kills himself with his wife's dagger. Now, it's here where the film goes back to the 3 original characters at the rain-soaked Rashomon gate. It's here that the woodcutter says that he actually witnessed both the rape and the murder. Now, the woodcutter story is supposed to be the most reliable, but it's not. In his version, bandit, the wife, and the samurai are all petty, jealous, and corrupt. In fact, the bandit is the one who kills the samurai, but it's not how he described it in his version. Bandit is able to kill the samurai almost by accident. Even this version of the story is suspicious because it portrays the woodcutter in the best possible light. So at the end of all these stories, each of the characters has claimed responsibility for the murder in one way or another. But each version of these stories is unreliable because we are viewing them through the pride of the observer. So in Rashomon, truth may be impossible to find. Vanity, duplicity, and pride all destroy the search for the real truth. After all the different stories have been told, the only truth we're certain of is the power of perspective. In Rashomon, perspective doesn't just form reality, perspective is reality. Now, a large portion of this movie is set in this dense forest. This may seem like a minor note, but the film's forest setting is crucial to its symbolism. Rashomon opens with a scene of a man walking into the forest. Now the film gives us this long, unbroken shot that takes several minutes as we go deeper and deeper into this forest. Unbroken shots like this really bring the viewer into the space of the film. The forest is dense, tangled, and unclear. Like the film's characters, the audience will become lost and entangled in a thick forest of lies and conflicting viewpoints. Another significant aspect about Rashomon is its deliberate use of light, specifically sunlight. Director Akira Kurosawa and his cinematographer, Kazuo Miyagawa, set up these large mirrors to direct light in certain directions, like through trees and branches. The result is an effective imitation of natural sunlight that casts thick shadows on the forest floor. The film is also filled with scenes where characters, and therefore the camera, look directly into the sun. Now, this use of sunlight not only conveys a real sense of heat and humidity, but it also illustrates the movie's theme of finding the truth. The sun shines directly into the eyes of the characters. So there are many shots where someone's vision is obscured and it is impossible to see things clearly. So the forest itself acts as a symbol for the complexity of the story and the limits of human perspective. Rashomon's influence can be seen in media even today. Think about how many times you've seen an episode of a cartoon or a sitcom where the show's characters flash back and tell you differing versions of the same event. Then one of them says, "That's a lie. This is what really happened." Then someone else comes along and says, "No, this is how it really happened." And eventually we arrive at the truth. If you want another example to measure Rashomon's impact, just see how many movies have adopted the Rashomon format. For example, the film was remade in a western called The Outrage, starring Paul Newman. Another example, the 1996 Gulf War film Courage Under Fire tells the story of a war crime seen through multiple viewpoints. Again, like Rashomon, these contemporary examples have fractured timelines, contradictory versions of the same event, and, through multiple viewpoints, show the fragility of truth and the power of individual perception. As I said at the start of this commentary, Rashomon is thought of as one of the greatest movies ever made. I don't think it's quite that good, but it is an absorbing, dramatic piece of filmmaking, and I think it's worth seeking out.